Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to our next session. I know all the sessions that we planned was for the more bandwidth, more time, but because of the time consideration, we have to keep everything short. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now moving into a crucial phase of our conference where we all will dwell into the future of connectivity and communication. Our next session is a industry fireside chat titled The 6G Vision. Can India drive the global standards? Now, this session will be a deep dive into the technological, economic, and policy aspects that shape India's potential leadership in the 6G landscape. We'll also explore India's vision document and the Bharat 6G Alliance, seeking to understand the possibilities to reach, collaborate, regulatory strategy, international partnerships, and potential roadblocks. Guiding us through this insightful discussion, ladies and gentlemen, our STEAM panel is being chaired by Mr. Pradeep Gupta, Chairman, Cybermedia Group. Sir, a very warm welcome. And joined by Akhil Gupta, Vice Chairman, Bharti Enterprises, a prominent conglomerate in India with diversified interests in telecom, agribusiness, financial services, and retail. His role as Vice Chairman underscores his significant influence and contribution to strategic direction and operations of the company. With a wealth of experience and expertise at the same time, Akhil Gupta has played a pivotal role in shaping Bharti Enterprises' growth and success in various industries. Akhil sir, a very warm welcome. Our next panelists, we already have all the panelists on the stage, but still two-liners and brief introduction about them. Manoj Chugh sir is already here on the stage, Chairman Manoj Chugh Advisory LLP. His pivotal contribution have played a crucial role in the development of India's internet and information infrastructure. Our next panelist, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Kiran Kumar from IIT Hyderabad. Kiran's expertise and contribution extend beyond industry work, as he also served as an adjunct faculty member with the Department of Electrical Engineering. Today, the collective expertise promises to shed light on the future of connectivity in India and its potential global impact. Without further ado, Pradeep sir, please take over.
Okay, so thank you very much. We are supposed to talk about 5G plus, right? That is the symbol there. And so therefore, 5G plus means that we have to talk about 6G. And the previous session was great because they talked about terahertz communication. So, from K we move to M, from M we move to G, and now from G we are going to transition to T in the future, right? And so this session also we are going to be talking about that, and I have a fantastic panel which can look into the future and sort of, try and argue out the different kind of the roadmap that is going to be there for 6G, what are the roadblocks that may come and stuff like that. So, Prime Minister Modi came up with the 6G vision document. And one of the persons who was an architect in that entire journey is Professor Kiran. So perhaps if you can quickly, in the next, we want to keep it very chatty. So, very quick answers is what I would request you. But if you can just sort of, share your experience of that.
Thank you. I think I was fortunate enough to be able to contribute to this India 6G vision document. Just to say that there was no India 5G vision document, or there was no India 4G vision document, or a 3G vision document. And interestingly, just for the benefit of the audience, the Honorable Prime Minister has released this document. We have contributed to what the vision would look like. Please see the document. I won't go through all the details. We'll discuss that more. Elements of it will become apparent during the course of the discussion. Between the release of the document and now, a few weeks ago, ITU, which defines the vision and requirements for next generation communications, they have a project every 10 years. So IMT 2020, also known as 5G, is is developed in 2020 but started in 2010. Now 5G is a reality. Likewise, IMT 2030 project has begun 2-3 years ago. And ITU has released the IMT 2030 framework and vision document, where for the first time, India had actually contributed in a very large way. Of course, there is a lot of resistance to our entry. So there are 6 pillars defined, which are 6 sort of services that will be offered as part of 6G. Where India has contributed to something called ubiquitous communications, which was heavily resisted by most advanced countries for, for different reasons. And we pulled a big victory in ITU. And United States and India reached an agreement after 14 rounds of negotiation with intervention from White House and because of the recent collaborations. So India has entered this club of setting the stage for 6G starting today. It's a long journey. The requirements will be defined in 2 years, and India, it's aligned, very well aligned with the Prime Minister's vision document. We truly reflected what we intended to achieve in the ITU document. Thank you.
Wonderful. Manoj, if you look at 2G, 3G, 4G, we were, in all these, we were behind. All right, and we sort of got the technology from abroad, and mostly it was the US or Europe, which was the supplier of that technology. And later generations, it switched to a lot of Chinese technology also coming in. But we were always behind. 5G, yes, we were probably not that much behind, but not part of the standards and so on. So therefore, is this the right sort of a moment for India to get into this, or we are too early in the game, or what do you think?
Well, PG, first of all, again, as I reflect back as somebody who had been on the side of having supplied equipment, and Akhilji knows that, so you can say that I made a lot of money selling gear like this in the past, and now I'm on the other side, right? So it's interesting. I think we are at the right point in time from a historical perspective when we look at 6G. The ideation has happened, the framework has been defined, the vision has been defined, the user requirements have been set, and India has played a very important role. And again, congratulations, Professor Kiran, for really coming in early in the game. I think what's incredibly important for us now is to drive the standards, drive interoperability, and ensure that in the next wave, when we start deploying technology, we make it cost-effective, affordable enough, so that there are a plethora of equipment providers who operators can choose from so as to deliver low-cost services. At the end of the day, we can move from 6G, 7G, 8G, and so on, which is likely to happen. But how do we land it on the ground? How do we make sure that each and every one of us can afford this? And Professor, you spoke about ubiquitous. Ubiquitous means that even somebody who is at a minimum level of income in rural India should be able to afford the data plans that operators come up with. And they cannot come up with affordable data plans if the cost of equipment remains very high, particularly when we go to gigahertz level of frequencies, because the technology, everything else changes. So I think we're at the right time. Congratulations. How do we land it on the ground? How do we leverage Make in India? How do we leverage PLI? How do we get 50, 100 equipment providers to come in so that Akhilji has choice, so that he can then deliver very affordable data plans so that we make it ubiquitous?
Wonderful. Akhil, huge investment that has been made in the entire 5G infrastructure. And even before the apps are there, the utilization by industry is there of 5G, and before any monetization, really speaking, has happened on all the money that has been spent on 5G infrastructure, we are now talking about 6G. Does that give you the jitters?
Well, first of all, Professor Kiran, congratulations. I think the vision document and being on this important table is something which experts like you have really made India proud of. Manoj made some very, very relevant points. And I think India's biggest contribution in this whole 6G vision will not be about technology alone. Because technology is physics. Everybody would have the same kind of knowledge. You will add value. But the biggest contribution I think India can make is what you mentioned, being ubiquitous. Now, ubiquitous means inclusivity. Ubiquitous means affordability. And for that, what we have so far experienced as telecom industry is that every time there is a change of technology and a new spectrum, what you have is a completely new set of network, right? And it's a huge amount of investment which has to go in. How do we make it into an incremental investment is, I think, going to be the key. And I'm convinced that only India can, with its frugality, with its habit of doing things in a manner and at a cost which others cannot think of, only India can provide that input. So I'm very glad when we were discussing before, you mentioned that is precisely what you're planning to do. So I really look forward to that. One other aspect which I would want to mention, I think this time around as we talk about this vision, we also need to impress upon the government that this thing, obsession about getting a lot of money on new spectrum, will also have to go if we have to talk of ubiquity. So for instance, the existing investors, telecom operators, who have made hundreds of billions of dollars of investment, right? I think they deserve to get this new spectrum virtually as a continuation of their program. So there's something, that debate also must start now along with this vision document. And I'm sure with the work which you are doing, we will have some tremendous results. I also am glad it's a 2030 vision document, gives us enough time to monetize.
You still have seven years. Yeah, but so therefore, in terms of the vision as far as 6G is concerned, are we talking about utilization of, is it an infrastructure which is built on top of the existing infrastructure, or are we again talking about complete revamp once again of the entire infrastructure that has been created?
So, as you
And same way about the devices as well, perhaps you can add on the devices.
as you very well know, one generation to the next, the biggest change that happens is the spectrum. Spectrum.
Correct.
We have gone from 800 megahertz till today to 3.5 gigahertz. Right. This is the golden set of frequencies, and there are no more golden set of frequencies beyond 3.5. Then they go into a new territory, 6, 7, 8. Right. So I agree with Akhilji that you can't ask this kind of obscene amount of money that we have been doing for whatever reasons, good or bad. I mean, I don't want to comment on that, for selling frequencies at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 gigahertz. So that is a separate discussion, but
but is that one of the recommendation, one of the things that you would be debating in the entire document, that the spectrum should be it's a public good and therefore should be available to the industry?
See, if there is a will, there is a way. First and foremost, the amount of money charged for 800, 700, 900 for historical reasons is well and good, and voice data has been given. But when you go into this new age, where you are talking about auctioning airwaves at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 gigahertz, for example, a millimeter wave, the prices have been quite low. But I would rather recommend frequencies beyond 6 gigahertz to be treated on par with millimeter wave. If that thinking starts now, then we can build technology not comparable to millimeter wave, but 6 gigahertz performance comparable to current midband. That is an achievable target given the 7 years we have, and yet not burdened by this huge spectrum burden. If this can be thought through, maybe the seeds of this discussion have to put in, then I think technology is something like Mr. Akhil said, it's physics, and the intent is there in the government. There will be 10, 20 providers. There will be chipset providers. There will be RAN providers. India has immense potential. Given 7 years, that's achievable.
Okay, so, perhaps it would be a good thing, Akhil, if the industry now started working on this entire thing, a dialogue with the government, and, perhaps the higher spectrums could actually be defined as a public digital good, and if it can, therefore, then be shared amongst the various users of that.
You see, industry, I always feel, is in a very disadvantageous position to start this dialogue. It sounds like self-serving. What you're trying to say is give me spectrum free. I feel, and I'm not talking as benefiting from lower spectrum price, but we are talking of a vision thing here, right? What is great what we are doing is we are talking of visions. We are not talking of transactions. When you talk of vision, I think it has to encompass every element which will make this vision come true. You're talking of, you're mentioning there how you can, at very small cost, put those nodes, which will obviously, such high frequency spectrum will need too many of them. Has to be very low cost. Similarly, the other big element of this cost is spectrum. That debate has to start. And the right thing to do will be not in terms of economics, but in terms of vision. If we want to take that very high-speed communication to every nook and corner of this country, then this comprehensive debate as a part of vision document will have to be there.
Right. Perhaps, you talked about the node concept. Perhaps for the audience, if you can quickly in a minute share what exactly that concept was.
Thank you. So one of the, this is my personal opinion. The way I look at the evolution of the cellular technologies is that 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G belong to one family. Okay. There is something called cellular architecture. Tall towers, diesel engine, big antennas, 300 meters range, 1 kilometer range. This is called cellular topology, fiber, lot of cost. One tower, how many crores you have to put in. This continues to exist, right? We continue to enjoy the benefits of the existing system, but as going forward, we have to move to a new architecture. The new architecture will not have 1 crore tower, diesel engine, and the equipment cannot be $30,000, $20,000. The equipment has to be on the order of thousands of dollars and powered by possibly solar or on a small pole. Weight has got to be less than 5 kg, 6 kg, and yet the users will get gigabit connectivity and no fiber. This is achievable. This is a technology issue, it's achievable, and the spectrum cost has to be exponentially lower, not linear.
Okay, so, Manoj, you have been, as you said, a supplier for the European companies when it came to telecom equipment. And obviously, this is something that would not be acceptable to companies like, the equipment supplier. I don't want to name any of them. And therefore, what sort of a pushback do you see coming from the big equipment suppliers in the world?
PG, I'd like to go back to what Akhilji said about vision. I think what is our vision? Is our vision to enrich a few equipment vendors? Is our vision to make sure that India becomes a developed country by the turn of the century? What is our vision? I think we have to begin there. We are saying we are in Amrit Kaal. We are saying this is India's opportunity. We are saying that innovation and everything else that we are doing can help us to get there. We know that technologies like 6G are going to help create many, many new kinds of jobs and opportunities. We know that when we have zero latency, which is what 6G will almost promise, you can actuate your thoughts in real time. That means there is no difference between action and thought. So if we are talking about a brand new age, which is going to power India and our youth and provide advantage to the demographic dividend we always talk about, but we don't know how to take advantage of. I think we need to step back and say that this vision and bringing it to reality is critical for us. And therefore, I would say that are people going to be against us? Of course they will. There are lots of people who don't want to see India progress. They have been there for many years. They've been there for hundreds of years. We know that. And they will always be there. So I think we need to focus on what's important for us. I think Professor Kiran and all have done a great job. First step, how do we land it on the ground? How do we operationalize it? How do we reduce cost? How do we reduce and give benefit of that zero, I would say, difference in time between thought and action? That's why we should focus. Are people going to be against us? Many of them, of course, yes. Let's take the battle on, head on.
So exactly, I mean, it's good to be realistic about some of these things. We all know about, how big pharma works in a manner which may not be the best for a general public. And similarly, I mean, for instance, why did the US oppose the ubiquitous connectivity? I'm sure it was the big lobbies of AT&T and Verizon and so on not wanting to do that, because there, if you want to shift from one operator to another operator, you have to actually change the set, right? So those are okay. So yeah. So please, why was the opposition there? And then perhaps, Akhil, your view.
Actually, the thought process of people, experts sitting here, distinguished people, I mean, they're partly responsible, really getting per byte delivered at the least cost, and handsets. I mean, India is the innovation ground for services, not the other countries, although they developed the technology. So what I am seeing is that there is a lot of resistance to change from the United States operators who are driving these decisions.
Was
There's
it
a lot of resistance to change.
just resistance to change, or there were lobbies?
I don't want to say this aloud because I already have enough enemies, but they were driven by the incumbents. The incumbents to drive the operator, North American operator or some Western operators, and their governments in turn toe the line, and we really had to, pull a miracle eventually to get our ubiquitous connectivity in. What is ubiquitous connectivity? The rural user get a gigabit per second service on a device, just at the same rates as what we are paying today. This is a no-go for, there is a huge haves, digital haves and have-nots in the other countries, by the way.
Right.
It's just not India. So, and people are okay with that, but we are not okay with that. There is a big mindset change. Here, we have actually transformed, and we truly have brought 99% of the population to be digital haves. Whereas other countries, they're still digital have-not, especially the rural areas are really suffering in most
Yeah.
It's an irony, by the way.
No, when it comes to digital, payment infrastructure, for example, I think today we are the first world, and a whole lot of other countries are perhaps developing or, third world.
And G20 has really...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you were saying something, Akhil.
What I was saying was that I don't subscribe to the idea that the vendors in the world, which we have been working for last 25 years now, I don't think we are at crossroads with them in terms of the purpose. A lot of our success as operators is because of the cooperation we have had from them. So they are great friends, they are great well-wishers, and right from the time when you were the vendor, I think we have always promoted the idea that a vendor must be able to make good return on capital, to be able to innovate and provide that R&D and give great equipment to us. I don't think that the vendor community will necessarily be opposing the vision of being ubiquitous. After all, instead of having 1 million base stations at 20,000, if they can have 20 million at much lesser than that, they should be fine. And they are all also interested in seeing that telecom goes to every person on this universe, right? It's their vision also. So I really don't think that they would have too much of resistance. And we have seen how the equipment prices have come down. I remember when we started operations, it used to be quoted as $1,000 per line. I'm talking of mobile, where there's no line, right? But the terminology and the way of quoting was $1,000 per line or per subscriber. And as we move forward, we moved on to dollar per Erlang, and then of course, dollar per GB and things like that. So this has all evolved. Today, what is the cost of equipment is a small fraction of what it used to be on a like-to-like basis. I think they are also evolving, and I'm sure they are part of this vision group. So I have no
Okay.
doubt that they will
So
work together.
you feel corporate telecom would be supportive of whatever things
I
are,
think so.
are going
I
on.
have no
But
doubt.
now let's talk about the geopolitical side. And where do you see, you know, because for example, in 5G, China had taken a lead, all right, and a lot of the standards which were there were actually set up by China and the Chinese company. And so what do you see happening there
I think
on 6G?
what China could do on 5G and before that on 4G, what they were able to actually exploit were the inefficiencies or deliberate, to some extent, resistance to change in bringing down the equipment cost. And that is how China really burst on the scene as the major supplier of telecom equipment. I think now with our scale, now with our internal domestic demand, we are in a position exactly to do perhaps what China did then. And that's where I would say what Professor Kiran is propagating, that let us go to the bill of material level and let's try and see with that bill of material plus value addition and plus cost addition, why can't we produce these equipments in India? Now, I have no problem if even within India they are produced by Ericssons and Nokias, that's fine. To me, they are as Indian companies as any others. But the fact is what India can do in terms of cost engineering, I don't think any other country other than China can really do. And that's where I really think India's contribution to this vision will be.
So Manoj, do you also think that therefore perhaps, you know, besides standards, etc., we should also be working towards creating a Huawei kind of a thing here which leads along with those standards, leads with those equipment and so on?
PG, I think we must recognize that supply chains will always be global in more ways than one. There is no one country which is going to have everything.
Yeah, but China did manage to get into the 5G game primarily because a lot of equipment which was coming from, and very cost-effective equipment, as Akhil just now said, that drove that entire thing. So should we also, you know, we have only 7 years, right?
So I would say, PG, we have to be realistic. We have 7 years, but you know, in India, we'll say 7, and there will be operators who will come in 5 or 4 or whatever, because everyone wants to be, you know, off the game first. So I think it's very important for us to build our alliances very carefully from a supply chain perspective. We may not be able to do everything on our own, but there is a lot more that we will be able to do going forward in the future as compared to what we've done in the past. So I think we need to take a realistic approach. We need to recognize that we need to have a circle of trust. We need to understand that geopolitics is critical. We need to work with friendly countries who can perhaps help us to look at the bill of material in a very complementary fashion so that overall we are able to bring costs down very, very significantly. And as Akhilji has said, I mean, we welcome everyone to come and invest in India. After all, we allow 100% automatic route for FDI in telecom in particular. So I think India has the opportunity. We should seize the moment.
Right. And Professor Kiran, where is China research when it comes to 6G? Where are they? Are they at par? They are ahead? How many years ahead or what?
So I have worked with the Chinese and American and European research organization for more than 20 years. Because I've developed some of these standards. They made very impressive progress, especially after 2015. That's when 5G was developed. They had 5,000 engineers developing standards, and they really fine-tuned their products. So in 6G, right now people don't talk much in terms of what's happening. There is a lot of in-house development going on. It's very hard to say. But press, you do see so many large number of patents published by Chinese and all that. But quietly, there's a phenomenal amount of R&D going on in 6G. For example, we have a small company, we incubated out of IIT Hyderabad, Wising Networks. We have 150 patents out of 50 are 6G related patents. Some of them have become standards, essential patents incorporated in 5G. Quietly, a lot of work is happening. And it's going to be a big tussle to gain the upper hand. Unfortunately, in this field, like there is a discussion of can we have Huawei. You have to have a deep R&D, deep tech R&D, deep standards presence, IPR, product. It's a holistic package. You can't have one and not have the other. And it's a 20-year journey, not 7.
Right. So absolutely. I think that sort of sums it up
I
very
think
well.
one thing which I feel, if you take the example of auto industry in India, you still have 20 major brands, but there are thousands of ancillary units. Similarly, if you look at Chandrayaan 3, right, it's ISRO, but look at the amount of suppliers they had in India. I think something like that is bound to happen here, where a lot of ancillary industries will come up and a lot of ancillary players will come up here.
Absolutely. So with that, thank you very much, gentlemen. Do I have time for a couple of questions from the audience? Okay, 2 questions. So, no, I must. So does anybody have a specific question? Just raise your hands and the mic will come to you. Okay. Great. I think we actually covered, all the bases, right from the financial to devices, to infrastructure, to technology, to standards, to geopolitical issues and so on. So thank you very, very much, gentlemen. It was a very engrossing discussion.